Well, a moment ago we thought about what it takes to walk through the valley of the shadow of death with Jesus. It won't always be hard, of course, but sometimes it will be. And maybe it is getting harder to be a faithful Christian than it has been for a long time. And if the hard times get harder, more frequently difficult, are we only looking forward to the valley where nothing grows? Is that all we've got to look forward to? Well, no. Isaiah points us to the future, to the day when Jesus returns. Just listen to the song of verse 9. Surely this is our God. We trusted him and he saved us. That word trusted means something like waited intensely. It isn't an idle trust, but a patient, expectant, focused belief that God would deliver us. And this song tells us that we'll not be disappointed when that day comes. So let's take a look at what is so good about the salvation that God brings according to Isaiah 25 verses 6 to 9. 3 times we're told where this is going to happen. On this mountain. Which mountain? Well, 24 verse 23 tells us the Lord Almighty will reign on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem. This is the mountain of the Lord, which we first encountered back in chapter 2 verse 2. Do you remember? As the nations flocked to learn of God's ways under the rule of King Jesus. Well, the picture there is expanded here as the Almighty, transcendent, that means God far above the heavens. The transcendent God of the universe is seen to be personal, present, and incredibly generous. It's an offer for all people, even for the terrorizers of verse 3, even for someone like the Apostle Paul. That is the scandal of grace, isn't it? That anybody can come in. None need be excluded. It is open to everybody, but it's not open to anybody in the way they want. They have to come to this particular mountain. And the image here in verses 6 to 8 particularly is an image of a coronation party. The king has just been crowned and he throws a banquet which is intended to show what sort of a king he's going to be. So the king would give gifts to his favourite servants and stewards and so on to show that they're his favourite people and to show how generous he is. But here the gifts fall on all his people. Every one of his people is invited to the banquet. We can so easily, I think, pass over verse 6, can't we? Because it talks of food and drink, and we eat so well with such variety. We can drink whatever we want when we want, can't we? Just go to the shops and buy it. We've got a variety of shops that are still allowed to be open, haven't we? Where we can go and buy whatever we want. It was not so for Isaiah's hearers. For most of them, they largely lived on bread and water. That was the basic food. Feasting was an incredibly rare thing to do. It wasn't every Sunday roast, was it? Variety was unheard of. You ate what the region produced. When you did feast, the best cuts of the feast were given to God to feed the servants in the temple. But now, at this feast, God gives back to his people 100-fold, the very best cuts of the best meat, the best wines, no allergens, no defect, no lack. Food and drink are, of course, the first essentials of life. So this vision points to abundant provision, as much as you could want and need of everything that is good for you. It's the overflowing grace of God to his people in every area of life. So we don't lack food, but perhaps we feel a lack of deep relationships, or perhaps meaningful emotional connection, or purposeful work, or hope when life is hard. Well, all of those needs will be met abundantly too. But by itself, that isn't enough. Lovely as it is it? Think of the best holiday you've ever had. Perhaps a beautiful villa overlooking a glorious white sandy beach, or a chalet up in the mountains with excellent snow, Was it a sporty sort of holiday, or a bookish or culture-y kind of trip? See, fond memories tainted a little with sadness, aren't they? Sadness that all of life is not like that, or that we can never go back because some of our companions are no longer with us, or we're just not friends with them anymore, or we're not financially or physically able to make the trip again. Maybe you get that feeling when you're halfway through a holiday. I don't know if you get this. I get this. You get past halfway and you see the end of the holiday coming, don't you? And it overshadows those final few days of the trip because you know it can't last. You've got to come back. But isn't that what 2020 has been like? Whatever happy plans we had for this year just blown apart by the fear of death. The shadow that hangs over us that tells us the good times are coming to an end. There's a veil that covers our faces, that blocks our eyes, makes it very hard to see the true future that God has laid out in front of us. It's a sheet, literally a cover of grieving, like the veil worn at a funeral, or even the sheet put over the coffin. But this one covers our hearts so that we can't feel properly. We just in that sort of depressed state, and goodness knows that's been the case for many of us for much of 2020, hasn't it? This year, every single heart has longed for an end of death, haven't we? I can't tell you how many people I've seen at funerals, met for the first time at funerals, because I can't even go and visit them to grieve with them before that. Wouldn't it be glorious for death to be ended? Wouldn't it be a glorious place to live if death were no more? But how could such a place exist? And for that to happen, death has to be gone, not just banished, as if it could return like a bad prodigal son, but obliterated forever. Swallowed up, in fact. On this mountain, God will destroy the shroud that enfolds all people, the sheet that covers all nations. He will swallow up death forever. And so all mourning over death is over. Here comes God, that personal God who is also above the heavens, to just wipe all tears from all faces, the gentle and mighty Saviour. See, this is what makes the wait worthwhile. We wait with intensity because we long for this day, don't we? To be with this God, gentle and strong, in a place where all suffering is gone, where there's never again a valley of the shadow of death, for death will be but a memory, and barely a memory. The good of that place to come will even make all that we suffer here worth it. Indeed, to have walked through the valley of the shadow of death now with Jesus will make that place all the sweeter, for we will truly understand what a blessing it is. The world is going to mock us for sticking with Jesus' words. They could mock us for waiting patiently for him, and they'll certainly call us sinner and hypocrite. But on that day, says Isaiah, we'll be vindicated. We'll be rescued, just as he promised. And every single person will see that we were right to wait intensely all along. It's an extraordinary vision, isn't it? It's so hard to comprehend this side of the veil, and it's almost unbelievable, isn't it? So why should we believe it? Why should we walk through this valley of tears in the hope of something so supernaturally wonderful? Is it not just so much pie in the sky? Well, to answer that, we need to come back together in just a moment.